know what's...
Oh, no, you're right.
Is it just on? It's just on. I don't have to do that.
You're on.
It's on. Here we go.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the ICOM booth. It is a little bit after 1 o'clock, so we're going to do a presentation on education of ham radio. Miss Bev Matheson, KJ6RSX, has been an elementary teacher in Southern California since 1997. After participating in a W3AO field day in 2011, I was there.
Yeah, that's
A couple other you guys out here. She was inspired to get her ham radio amateur license and now at general status. She started an amateur radio club at her school and now has around 55 students that are involved in amateur radio. She is also a member of the Discovery Education Network and is working to enrich the lives of her students through technology. That is the written introduction for Bev. I can tell you from what I've heard and what I've seen with education and using amateur radio to get some of these kids energized into learning. And these aren't star students and A's, B's, and C's top of the class. These are kids that if we're given the option, they would not be going to school. So Carol Perry's been teaching these kind of things on the East Coast. Bev's starting a movement on the West Coast. And I'm going to just turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Ray. Hi, everybody. As you said, my name's Bev Matheson. I've been a teacher for 16 years in Southern California. Wait, here we go. There we go. I teach at Dorothy Grant Elementary School. We're a K-5. I'm in about 50 miles east of Los Angeles. And we're in a fairly low socioeconomic area. So the kids are probably 75% of them are on free and reduced lunch. It's a very high Hispanic population, so I have a lot of language learners, and then the rest of us, there's a mixture. The rest are just a mixture of kids. And as you can see, we have a great friend in David Collingham, who has been my support and my mentor in getting my ham radio license and getting started with my students. At Dorothy Grant, I'm a 4th grade teacher. I have 30 kids in my class who are all extremely excited about ham radio. And then as well as after school, on Thursdays after school, we meet for an hour every week, and I have 4th and 5th graders who participate, and I have nearly 30 of them as well. We started our club in November, and David Collingham is the trustee of our club and a major supporter, both supporting getting equipment in the classroom and supporting me and encouraging me to get my license. And here is a picture of some of the kids actually surrounded around the radio. Okay, I want to tell you how this all started. After I was kind of excited about talking on the radio at that field day when I met Ray, I was talking to David and I said, you go on these crazy de-expeditions. You go around the world, you travel to all these great countries. I want to get my kids involved in that, and I want to do sort of a Flat Stanley project where he takes something with him to travel so that the kids can see where he's going to, and I can teach them about geography and about the culture of the different countries he travels to. So we decided to create a flag project. And on this flag, the kids all they drew pictures of their faces, they put their name, and we decided to put a message of goodwill so that anybody who came in touch with our flag would maybe have their spirit lifted that day, just to do something nice to make the world a better place. So the first year, David went on the Spratly de-expedition, and he took our first flag, which is our Smile Just Because flag, and that was really exciting because our flag on that expedition actually traveled all the way around the world. So my kids tracked every country it traveled to. I taught them a little bit about each of the countries and the people that lived there. And we also tracked the mileage between each country that the flag traveled. It actually traveled over 29,000 miles that year. It was an amazing thing. The next year, actually October 2011, he went to Rotuma, Fiji. And so we created another flag and sent it with him that year. And this time it was with 2nd graders. And what the really great thing about this trip was David visited an elementary classroom of first and second graders, and they liked our flag so much that on the spot they created a flag and sent it back to us. Meanwhile, my kids are learning about what it takes to travel to the Spratly Islands. It's not an easy thing to do, and they realize just what kinds of trials and tribulations people go through to actually get there. And then they also learned about the culture of the people that live there, and that they're not rich, they're poor people. None of the kids had shoes on their feet. Their schools were falling apart. And so my students decided that they wanted to send care packages to these kids, so we collected school supplies, actually, is what we did, and we sent every child in that classroom a school supply. And then we were also able to take their flag to a city council meeting, and my little second graders, all because of this de-expedition, did a presentation to the mayor and the city council and asked them if they would sign our flag, because David had people like the Commissioner of Communication of Fiji sign our flag, and I was like, I can't compete with that, but I can get the mayor, and I can get police officers to sign it, and I can get firemen to sign it, and I can get the superintendent to sign it. Meanwhile, letting people in the community know what a fun project we're doing. And now we have great people like UD Expeditioners helping us out in doing this and making it accessible for my students. But the key thing here is on that de-expedition, I was able to go on YouTube during that time and find a radio contact that someone had made with David while he was there. And this was the first time my students actually heard ham radio in the process. And I'm going to try to click on it and see if it'll work. I'm not sure it's going to work, but maybe. Oh, that's right. We don't have internet connection. Can I back out of that? Oh. Is it going to go? All right. Oh. All right. Well, that's okay. We can just cancel. We can just get out of it. Should I hit cancel? Oh, wait. There we go. All right, well, we'll just move on from that. What I will tell you, though, is that was the kids' first time hearing somebody using the ham radio. And they're like, well, why can't we talk to him on the radio? And that was their first experience. And I said, well, because you have to have a license and you have to have a radio. You can't just do it without having that equipment. So then David's like, well, why don't you get your radio license? And I said, all right, I can do that. I can get my technician's license. So I studied and I got it. And then he says, well, you really need to have a general license if you're going to be able to make contact with me when I go on expeditions. And I'm like, oh, great. So I get that book and I study, and then it was actually a year later, and last October I was able to attain my general license. And this is our latest flag project, which was just this last year. In the fall of 2012, David went to Mount Athos, and this was the flag that we took. And what was great about this is the kids learned all about Eastern Europe. They learned about the mythology behind the monks living in Mount Athos. They learned all about what the monks do, and they learned about Greek food, all kinds of things. And we actually got a QSL card from Monk Apollo as well. He signed one for us, so that was really cool. So, as I said, I got my general license in October, and that's when we founded our DGES, Dorothy Grant Elementary School Amateur Radio Club. And our initial call sign was KK6APQ, which was issued on November 6th. But then David, once again, he's such a great guide. He encouraged me. He's like, you guys need a vanity call sign. You need to try to get something that has to do with your elementary school. So we applied for K6DGE and actually got it, and we're shocked and surprised that we even got that. The purpose of our club is to promote ham radio and the fun in using ham radio, and to promote their expertise in using the radio. It actually lends itself to many things I'm going to get into later in my presentation. The other thing I have to do as a teacher, though, is to align it to my curriculum. So I have to be able to show how it fits in writing, in reading, in math, and in science. Well, obviously science, but I have to make it fit in everywhere else. So that's another one of my purposes as well. This is our equipment we use at our school. I was able to buy a used ICOM 746 Pro with a power supply, and then that's what we use in the classroom, and that's our antenna. When we first got our antenna, that's the only thing we had to put it up in the, outside our classroom. So I just kind of put it in a chair, and I put some blocks under there, and we actually made some good contacts. We contacted Hungary and Moldova and Japan and Alaska and quite a few places, so that was really exciting. Using the radio for the first time in the classroom. These are pictures of my students actually using the radio with David. He came after I got it because I looked at this radio and I'm like, I'm just a new ham. I don't know how to use this radio. I need some help. So David was in our area, so he came and spent the day with us, and every single child that day got to talk on the radio with his help, and it was just engaging and exciting, and these kids just went crazy for it. This picture right here are our initial contacts that we made. We didn't have a logbook yet or any place to put it in, so we just wrote it on a piece of paper, and we're saving that forever because that was our initial contacts that we made. It was really exciting. And you notice we have the lights shut off because we did figure out that the fluorescent lighting affects our radio contacts. So the kids are very cognizant about that. Our first club, now that was in my classroom. Our first club meeting was November 29th, 2012. And honestly, I don't have a science background, so I didn't really know, okay, I'm like, what am I going to teach these kids, about the science behind ham radio? Well, I couldn't even get into that yet. I had to teach them just the superficial things like the phonetic alphabet and the RST reports and the common cue signals. So I thought those would be the best and probably the most efficient things to teach the kids right at first. And let me tell you, I gave them a copy of all those things. They took them home, and the very next week we came back and they could all, we had like a little competition on who could phonetically spell their name the quickest, and they just were all over it. Those kids had that thing memorized. And we also introduced the frequency chart to them, but honestly I still didn't really know that much about it, so I'm still learning as well. And then as far as the radio, we were just listening at that point when David wasn't there. That was really all we could do because I wasn't really sure how to use it, so we're still working on that. We knew, though, that when we made contacts, if we were going to ask somebody for a QSL card, that we had to have one ourselves to send back to them. So what I did is I had my students did like a little competition. So they went home and they drew what they thought the QSL card should look like, and then they brought it back and we voted. And Jenna created this card up at the top, and you'll see that it says choose to make a difference around it, because that's the motto for our classroom this year, is to choose to do something to make the world a better place or to make a difference. And that was the motto on our flag as well. And the kids loved that she incorporated that. And I guess that's a repeater, is what she was telling me. So because we talked about the local repeaters on the hilltops. So she encompassed a lot of things that she had learned already. So that's our QSL card. And on the back, that's a picture of our elementary school. This was so surprising and so exciting. Right after we were issued our club call sign, we received a radiogram. I didn't know what a radiogram was. That was new to me too. And this lady was on the phone, and I went and talked to her. Her name was Judy Marsh, and she was delivering a radiogram via the telephone to me from Dr. Kate Hutton. And for those of you who don't know who Dr. Kate Hutton is, she's a seismologist, a very famous seismologist from Caltech in Pasadena. She's the lady they go to when the media goes to whenever there's a major earthquake. She's the one that's always interviewed on television. So we were honored that a real scientist, as Carol Perry would say, actually contacted us, and we're just elementary kids, right? So I made a copy of a blank radiogram, and we sent one back to her thanking her for congratulating us and asking her to come visit. And then she sent us one back again and said, I might be able to visit. And then she asked us what our time constraints were. And I actually have some pictures later in my presentation of her visit that she actually did come to our classroom. So we knew we had to create a logbook. This was a logbook that actually David helped me create early on for me to be able to put logs in. And I just took that logbook and the form that he made and turned it into our own for our club. And so now that's what we use. Okay, in January, I was so lucky over the holidays. To make contact again with Ray Novak of ICOM. And I wanted to, I didn't want to, I hate asking for things, but my kids really wanted to study for their technician's license. And I didn't have books, I didn't have manuals for them. So I emailed him and I asked him if he would consider helping us or if there was anything he could do to help us. And within an hour, he was able to make things happen for us. Thank you, guys. He was able to make things happen for us, and we just wanted to thank him so much for donating 10 technician manuals to my classroom. It just makes a world of difference for my kids. They sit there. I have one little boy that drives me crazy, his behavior, but I'll tell you what, since we've gotten those manuals, he keeps one on his desk, and whenever he's done with his work, instead of fidgeting around and being noisy and distracting, he takes that manual and he reads it, and he sits there and reads it and reads it. So thank you, Ray, for helping my behavior in my classroom. This is Chuck Sweeten, AI6I, and I had him visit. He was the person I went to get my license. He's a local amateur extra operator, and he works for the Red Cross. He's a Red Cross volunteer. So he came. Actually, I thought maybe he could use my radio, but then I found out that there's different levels of comfort with radio. So he did use it actually that day, but he's more of an emergency responder and uses mobile units and handhelds. He actually had just returned from working the Sandy hurricane when he came to visit us, so he talked to the kids about radio contact during emergency services. And then in January 31st, that's when Dr. Kate Hutton came. She came with Judy Marsh, her good friend, and you can see in the pictures that they brought a mobile unit with a battery pack. They demonstrated how you hook those together with a Yagi antenna and you can make contacts. She also brought a keyer to do Morse code and demonstrated that for the kids as well, because she's actually into Morse code, so that was pretty exciting. And she spent the day with us, also talked a little bit about earthquakes and volcanoes and things like that. Then on February 7th, 2013, David had gone to a convention in Florida and actually came across, he called me and he's like, I want to donate some radios to your classroom. So now we have 4 ICOM handheld radios as well that we've used in our classroom. And when we got them, we were so excited, and the kids are like, we want to use them, I go, well, we got to put them together. I mean, you don't have to do a lot to put them together, honestly. You just got to kind of clip some things together. But I thought, you know what? That's what hams do. They figure things out. So I told the kids, you need to come in. I'll divide you into 4 groups. We have 4 radios. Figure it out. Put them together yourself. And that's what you're looking at the pictures of. The kids getting together. Nicole, she is so all over this. She loves this stuff. And they had so much fun putting those radios together, because we had to get them together because David was getting ready to come and visit us for our Dorothy Grant Communication Field Day #1. We've had 2 now, but this was our first one. And this was a flyer that we made announcing that we were having this. And you can see we put all kinds of pictures in here. I want to point out this fellow right here. His name is Lewis P. Mallory. And Lewis P. Mallory is a retired high school English teacher from Fontana High School, which is a high school in our school district. And over 40 years ago, he had a ham radio class in his school that he ran. He actually had a whole science lab, and it was a very extensive laboratory, and that's where David Collingham got his ham radio license. So we wanted to invite him down, and unfortunately he wasn't able to come that day, but he did come later, which I'll show you about. So during our communications field day, the first half of the day, David presented his trip to Mount Athos, and you can see these are pictures of my classroom. We had lots of pictures put up that documented his trip, and he was talking about it. He presented the kids with the radios. He presented also an electricity lab. Okay, he presented the class with 4 new ICOM radios and an electronic lab, and we just still want to thank him so much. The kids are so excited to get started with all of that. And he was even able to get a QSL card from Monk Apollo, which we cherish. We know how valuable that is. The second half of the day, we started talking about making contacts on the radio, and we made a script so that the kids would know what to say. They could just read it. And we had them practice coming up to the board and saying, CQ, CQ, this is K6DGE, kilowatt 6 Delta Golf Echo, calling CQ, CQ. And the kids, they were shy at first and a little afraid to do it because, little kids, they're a little embarrassed. And especially Giselle, she was so shy, but by the end of the day, she was just, her voice was projecting and she was doing such a good job. Another thing we did is a little country search on the backside of the frequency chart. We showed the kids how you can tell what country you're talking to by the prefix on their call sign. And so we pretended that they were listening to the radio and they had to hear the call sign and they had to hurry up and write it down and then look and see who could find the country first. And that was a great activity for them to learn how to figure out what countries they were talking to. A little later in the day, then I also had some Greek food brought in from a restaurant in our area, and so the kids could taste what Greek food tasted like. And then we got on the radio, and I would like to try to click on the video so you could see Josh's first attempt to talk on the radio. Should I try it? I'm going to try it.
DGE kilowatt 6 Delta Golf Echo. Calling CQ, this is K6DGE, kilowatt 6 Delta
Well, it's a
Golf
little
Echo.
hard to hear, but he's saying CQ,
Calling
CQ, this is K6DGE,
K6DGE,
kilowatt 6 Delta
kilowatt
Golf
6
Echo.
Delta Golf Echo, over.
Over, and they're all just listening in.
Okay. Let me just check, make sure the meters and everything are working right here. I just heard someone come to the frequency.
So this was Josh's very first time on the radio, and the kids were so very patient because we hadn't been hearing anything for a while. And then all of a sudden, I'll just go ahead and tell you what happens in case
QRZ,
it doesn't work the whole time, but all of a sudden we actually did hear somebody, and it was WORIC. I think that's what his call sign is, and his name is Rick, and he's a friend of David's from Denver, Colorado, or from the Colorado area. And he actually got on the radio so we could make sure we would make some contact.
the station again.
And the kids were so excited, and when they heard him, they hurried up and turned the light off because they knew that that made a difference. And then they're like, write it down, we can't miss out on his call sign.
Yeah, say, please give us your call sign, over.
Please give us our call sign, over.
Again, say, repeat your call sign, please.
Repeat your call sign, please.
Oh, can you hear it?
Say, no copy. Go ahead and CQ again.
CQ, this is K6DGE, kilowatt 6 Delta Golf Echo. Calling CQ, this is K6DGE, kilowatt 6 Delta Golf Echo.
Is it hard to hear?
Calling CQ,
Can
this
they hear it?
is K6DGE, kilowatt 6 Delta Golf Echo, over.
W0RIC is my good friend, over.
Oh, over. There it is. I heard it.
Have you been operating the radio? This is my first day.
It's my first day, he says.
This is
Say,
my second
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Ask him how long he's been doing ham radio.
How long have you been doing ham radio?
Ask him how long he's
Second.
Second day this week. Say, second day this week.
Second day this week.
Tell him your age again.
My age is 10.
Okay, so that gives you a little example of one of their very first radio contacts. They were so excited with that. Okay, I think it's about over.
Okay, very good. And how did you learn about ham radio?
Very good. How do you learn about ham radio?
You know, when kids first talk on the radio for the first time, they don't know what to say. You know, they have no problem having conversations during the day with their friends or with me or whatever. But you put them up to a radio and someone's talking to them and they don't know what to say. So it took a little encouragement and give them a little idea about, you know, you can just have a normal conversation with somebody. They weren't sure about that because I made such a big deal about the ham radio code of conduct and that you have to be polite and you have to have manners and you can't say anything bad. And they're just like, oh my God, we don't want to get in trouble. You know, the FCC will come after us. So I'm going to go ahead and click out of this, or I think if I just go on to the next. Okay. After that, at the end of that day, I created some certificates of completion for them because I really want to make this a special time for them and to show them that it's really, you know, this is really something really cool that most kids don't get to do. And I wanted to make it very special for them. So they were very proud to get their certificates of completion. Okay. In March, I am affiliated with Discovery Education, and in March, my kids were invited to go to a conference in Palm Springs, California, and present to educators from all over California what we were doing with ham radio in the classroom. We had actually a week to prepare, and so we took everything off the bulletin boards, we put them on science boards, and we actually have a website as well, and the website was projected behind our science boards. And parents and teachers came around and asked the students questions, and they all presented their little section. They talked about, you know, the phonetic alphabet. They talked about the 3 types of licenses. They talked about the frequency chart in detail. Actually, I wished I could have brought him with me because he would amaze you, this little boy that did that. They talked about all the contacts we had made and how we're tracking them on the map. And they just talked about everything, and they had such an amazing time. And I actually had 11 parents to volunteer to drive their children an hour with a week's notice to go do this presentation, and it was just well received by everybody. And here they are again doing a few. You could see how the people are asking them questions and just very into what the kids had to say. Kaya over here actually demonstrated using the handheld radio on Simplex and just what she would say on the radio if she were using it to make contact. This little boy, Mark, actually, this teacher was so good with him. She went up, and she's actually studying for her ham radio license too. And I don't know, should I try this video? It's a little short video. I'll try it. This is just a little video of her asking him, you know, this test is really hard. You know, can you give me some advice on how I can pass it? And so I'll go ahead and try to play this and see what happens. See if we can hear it.
No. So how cool was that? Then you had to find it on a map, right? Love it. Okay, good.
You know that K6RSX?
So first he pointed out some of the places we'd made contacts. He showed her our call sign. There's a little bit of background noise in it because this is a science fair kind of situation.
After school.
She was amazed by them.
Are you going to go get your license now? But do you want to? I am too. It's really hard. What advice do you have for me in taking the test? What?
So his advice to her was, when studying for the test, come up with a system that works for you, and then just use your common sense. And I guess he heard that over and over again from me, so I think that's why he kind of had that memorized. So it was really cool. And I do want to tell you, I tested him about 2 weeks ago, actually, and he missed getting it by 2. So I'm really excited for Mark, and he's a 5th grader, actually. I've invited him to come back next year during our club meetings so that he can continue studying, because I really am excited for him. He really wants his license. Okay, then I had the pleasure of going to Visalia, where we have a ham radio convention in California in April. And when I went there, I met all kinds of, oh, it went to, well, I'll just go from here. And when I went there, I met so many amazing de-expeditioners that, okay, I'm on the right one. I was a little intimidated because I thought, I'm not going to know any of this stuff. It's going to be difficult. You know, I hope I learn something. I hope I meet somebody. And I actually met all kinds of people. And that next Monday, I had 6 ham radio operators, very experienced fellows, come to my classroom, and we held Grant Field Day number 2. The people who participated in it were me, of course. Lewis P. Mallory was able to come that day and enjoy the first half of the day with the children, and he just really, really was excited to see ham radio back in the classroom after his retirement. David Collingham, K3LP, was there. Dr. Arnold Schatz, N6HC, was there. Charles Spentgall, W6KK. Clark Stewart, W8TN. Jay Coblin, W2IJ, and Mike Mitchell, W6RW, worked with my students that day for the entire day. We broke the kids into 3 modules. We had an electricity lab going on in the classroom. We had the kids building antennas, and we created a radio shack out of, or ham shack, I guess, out of a gardening closet. I took all the gardening equipment out, and we took the radios over there and the equipment we needed, and that was our ham shack for the day. And these are the kids in the ham shack, actually. We divided them into 3 groups and then just did a rotation. These guys were so great with the kids. They had so much fun making contact. They made the analogy that making contact was like fishing. So you cast out a line and you hope to get a fish, but you don't know if you're going to get a fish. Just like when you call CQ, you hope to get contact, but you don't know if you're going to get contact. And the kids, that has just ingrained in their heads. So now they're like, when they make a contact, they're like, we caught a fish, you know, so it's really cute. And little Nicole here was just a champion on the radio. It was just amazing. She did such a great job. Module B was building antennas. So the kids actually built 2 antennas. They built a dipole antenna and an inverted V antenna. And first we had to build a mast, okay, to hang the antennas on. And so that was interesting. So we had some PVC pipe and we taped it together and put it up, and it looked all good. And you'll see what happened to that later. But the kids realized, wow, we need to know math. We need to know how to do long division. You know, the guys had them out there. Jay and Mike and Charlie were out there helping the kids with the antenna and teaching them how to do it. And it was just a very hands-on, get your hands dirty kind of situation. They had the kids stripping the wire, and that was actually the thing the kids liked the most, was stripping wire. I don't think those kids have ever done that with their parents in the garage or whatever. It was just a magical day for many of them. But what happened to our mast is when we had our antenna raising with our dipole, you can see it right here, it started leaning over. And we're like, oh my gosh, we have a problem here. We don't want that landing on one of the students, right? So we said, well, hams figure things out. So what are we going to use to fix this? So we took the mast down and we found some other stronger PVC pipe and got some duct tape, and we reinforced it and then put it up, and it actually still leaned, but it was a little better, I think. So they were very excited about their antennas. Then Module C was Electronics Theory Lab. David was actually in the classroom with students on his hands and knees, which I was very impressed. Not saying anything that he's old, but we're all getting up there. But the kids were so engaged in what he had to teach them. He showed them how to use a multimeter. He taught them about conductive and non-conductive materials. He taught them the difference between AC and DC. And they wrote papers and talked about that and totally remember everything that he taught them. This little girl, Asia, was feverishly writing down any notes he wrote on the board. She didn't want to miss anything. Then after that field day, I had applied, I guess because you have to apply, to speak at a school board meeting. And I really wanted the school district to see what we were doing in the classroom and to see how it fits into our curriculum. And I really wanted their support because I really want to put up a big antenna. So I'm hoping that they will like what we're doing and then allow us to do that. But in a moment's notice, I had 6 kids went with me, and they did their presentation. We wore our club T-shirts that we had made that have a little antenna on the back, and they presented to a packed crowd, and everybody was just amazed at what they had learned in just a few months of implementing ham radios in the classroom, and they just did an amazing job presenting there. So one thing I wanted to do is to tie it to the Common Core standards, because Common Core is a big buzzword in education right now, and we're switching from our state standards to a national standard, which are the Common Core standards, and project-based learning. And our administrators don't want us doing anything in the classroom or in the past that wasn't prescribed by them, but now they're starting to let us have a little more freedom in what we do in the classroom, because we have to have kids thinking at a higher level. We have to have kids writing 5-paragraph essays in 4th grade. We have to have kids using academic language, and we have to have them using protractors now, measuring angles and things like that. So part of our presentation to the school board was to show them that we teach geography and culture from other countries, but we also teach math. Okay, and the kids got to experience the food, and the presentation skills that they gained from ham radio is just amazing, because they have to learn to speak firmly and clearly into the microphone. And when they do that, it just comes, if they do that all the time on the ham radio, then when they do presentations in front of people, they'll naturally do it. It'll lend itself to that. I also wanted to show them that with the Common Core standards, kids are not expected to read at grade level, but 2 grades above grade level. And what better way to do that than with the technician's manual, because it's not an easy thing for 4th graders to read. So, and then writing as well. This is just an example of my kids using a graphic organizer, and then what their writing turned out like. They wrote amazing papers about their fields day because they had authentic material to draw from to be able to write these great papers. And not let alone the science and technology that they get out of learning through ham radio. I'm not going to click on this link, but this is a link to our website. We also have a website that we created, K6DGE.com, where we have a blog and we have pictures up that you can follow what we're doing in the classroom. I also, as a side note, because I really like art, and we never have time for art in the classroom, but not only did I have the kids, I bring it into the classroom by having the kids create their QSL card, we also did a pencil drawing of one of the students on the radio, and we taught texture and shading and lines, and and they're so engaged. Every aspect of using ham radio in the classroom, they're engaged in. So in closing, I'd just like to say thank you all for coming and listening to what I had to share with you about using ham radio in the classroom. And it has been my best year teaching. I've been teaching for 16 years, and just implementing this year has just inspired me to continue on, and I can't wait to see what happens next year and the year after that and the year after that. We have our license for our club call sign for 10 years, so I'm hoping it's going to be really amazing by then. So anyway, thank you very much for coming.